establish enduring principles for civil rights activism that are relevant today. He dared to challenge the status quo through the force of reason and mobilization of mass support. His leadership in the campaign for Catholic emancipation was a testament to his willingness to confront entrenched power structure. He believed that lasting reform could only be achieved through persuasion, legal argument, and the mobilization of public opinion. His legacy challenges those who want to use the law to achieve social change today. The message is clear. Meaningful and enduring change is possible when individuals and groups organize peacefully, articulate their demands with clarity and conviction, and persist in the face of adversity. He provided a blueprint for effective and principled leadership. The struggle for justice requires not just passion, but also discipline, strategy, and an unwavering commitment to constitutional principles. O'Connell knew from the bitterest experience that the road to dismantling embedded and unfair structures was a long one that called for as much patience as impatience. He wrote, "Incessant repetition is required to impress political truths upon the public mind. You must repeat the lesson over and over again if you hope to make a permanent impression." In a world grappling with persistent inequalities and rising authoritarianism, his example is more relevant than ever to those who want to use the law to achieve social change. In 1840, O'Connell set up the Repeal Association, and throughout the early 1840s, he organised huge public monster meetings out in the open across Ireland, attracting hundreds of thousands to hear him speak. They were a way for him to demonstrate the movement's strength and commitment. At the Hill of Tara on the 15th of August 1843, O'Connell addressed a crowd estimated in the hostile report of the Times as close to 1 million. These are some of his words from those meetings. "We are standing upon the Tower of the Kings, the spot where the monarchs of Ireland were elected and where the chieftains of Ireland bound themselves by the solemn pledge of honour to protect their native land against the Dane and every stranger. We are a Tower of the Kings, the spot from which emanated the social power, the legal authority, the right to dominion over the furthest extremes of the land. The strength and majority of the national movement was never exhibited so imposingly as at this great meeting. The numbers exceed any than ever before congregated in Ireland in peace or war. It is a sight not grand alone, but appalling. Not exciting merely pride, but fear. Step by step we are approaching the great goal of repeal of the Union, but it is at length with the strides of a giant. On this important spot, I have an important duty to perform. I here protest in the face of my country and my God against the continuance of the Union. I declare solemnly my thorough conviction as a constitutional lawyer that the Union is totally void in point of principle and of constitutional force. I tell you that no portion of the Empire had the power to traffic on the rights and liberties of the Irish people. The Irish people nominated them to make laws and not legislature. They were appointed to act under the Constitution and not annihilate it. Their delegation from the people was confined within the limits of the Constitution, and the moment the Irish Parliament went beyond those limits and destroyed the Constitution, that moment it annihilated its own power, but could not annihilate the immortal spirit of liberty which belongs as a rightful inheritance to the people of Ireland. Take it then from me, the Union is dead. Oh, my friends, I will keep you clear of all treachery. There shall be no bargain, no compromise with England. We shall take Government's College Green. I admit there is the force of a law, because it has been supported by the policeman's truncheon, by the soldier's bayonet, and by the horseman's sword, because it is supported by courts of law and those who have the power to adjudicate them. But I say solemnly, it is not supported by constitutional right. The Union, therefore, in my thorough conviction, is totally void, and I avail myself of this opportunity to announce to several hundreds of thousands of my fellow subjects that the Union is an unconstitutional law, and that it is not fated to last long. Its hour is approaching. America offered us her sympathy and support. We refused the support, but we accepted the sympathy. And while we accepted the sympathy of the Americans, we stood upon the firm ground of the right of every human being to liberty. And I, in the name of the Irish nation, declare that no support obtained from America should be purchased by the price of abandoning principle for one moment. And that principle is that every human being is entitled to freedom. My friends, I want nothing for the Irish but their country. And I think the Irish are competent to obtain their country for themselves. I like to have the sympathy of every good man everywhere, but I want not armed support or physical strength from any country. I will see every man of you having a vote, and every man protected by the ballot from the agent or landlord. I will see labour protected and every title to possession recognised when you are industrious and honest. I will see prosperity again throughout your land. In 1844, O'Connell was arrested, along with others, on charges of conspiracy related to his campaign to repeal the Act of Union and restore the Irish Parliament. The trial began in January 1844 in the Four Courts in Dublin, with O'Connell as the main defendant. These were known as the Irish State Trials, and many viewed them as a politically motivated attempt to suppress the nationalist movement. The following excerpts are from O'Connell's defence speech in the trial. From the day when I first entered the arena of politics until the present hour, I have never neglected an opportunity of impressing on the minds of my fellow countrymen the fact that I was an apostle of that political sect who held that liberty was only to be attained under such agencies as were strictly consistent with the law and the Constitution. That freedom was to be attained not by the effusion of human blood, but by the constitutional combination of good and wise men, by perseverance in the courses of tranquility and good order, and by an utter abhorrence of violence and bloodshed. Other politicians have said, win your liberties by peaceful means if you can, but there was an arrière-pensée in this admonition. They always had in contemplation an appeal to physical force in case other means should prove abortive. But I am not one of these. I have preached under every contingency, and I have again and again declared my intention to abandon the cause of repeal if a single drop of human blood were shed by those who advocated the measure. I made the same principle the basis for the movement in favour of Catholic emancipation, and it was by a rigid adherence to that principle that I conducted the movement to a glorious and triumphant issue. I am here surrounded by my countrymen who have confided their cause to my management for no other reason than that they have the fullest possible reliance on the sincerity with which, during a period of 40 years, I've proclaimed the doctrine that the man who commits a crime injures the cause he espouses and strengthens the hands of those who are its antagonists. My whole life is a refutation of the accusation that I am insincere. And is the invidious task now to be assigned to you, gentlemen, of branding your countrymen as fools and dotards, men who patronize hypocrisy, and who for nearly half a century have suffered themselves to be befooled and deluded by empty pretenses? The public will not believe it, England will not believe it, nor will any enlightened country in creation believe it. I before the European world. I am here pleading the cause of my country before a jury of Protestant gentlemen, in presence of the kings and people of the universe, and with what amazement will they not gaze upon you, if by a verdict which doubts for a moment the sincerity of my political professions, you brand as fools and dotards millions of your Catholic fellow countrymen, and with them many, very many Protestants of the greatest intelligence and the highest possible respectability. No, you cannot for a moment question the honest sincerity with which I have ever advocated glorious principle, the advocating of which was the pride of my youth, the glory of my manhood, and the comfort of my declining years. Human rights and abolition. By harnessing the collective voice of the marginalised, O'Connell laid the groundwork for subsequent movements for suffrage and minority rights. His insistence on constitutional methods, his ability to mobilise mass support, and his dedication to the rights of all people, regardless of creed or background, offer enduring lessons for those seeking to build more just and inclusive societies. He was a voice for those who never had a voice. He taught the people to disown servility and to develop the courage to oppose. He left a legacy of opposition to injustice. For O'Connell, human rights were not gifts in the hands of the elite to be distributed or conceded begrudgingly, but rather the essential birthright of all human beings that derived from simply being human. Belief in the dignity of each human underpinned his use of law and democratic discourse to pursue human rights and civil rights. He believed in the separation of church and state, and although a devout Catholic, he believed in religious freedom no less than political freedom. He opposed sexual discrimination, which he recognized not only had no justification, but was incompatible with rational humanity. He said the mind had no sex. He did not view human rights as a mere national issue. His was the universal concept of justice and equality. He championed those who were downtrodden, demonized, and marginalized, whether they were Irish Catholics, English Presbyterians, Russians, Jews, Native Americans, or slaves. He condemned the treatment of Aborigines in Australia, the Maoris in New Zealand, and of slaves throughout the world. On the eve of the famine, he said, "My sympathy with distress is not confined to within the narrow bounds of my own green island. It extends itself to every corner of the globe." By the 1840s, Daniel O'Connell was the most famous and outspoken abolitionist on both sides of the Atlantic. His impassioned speeches on the topic appeared almost weekly in the influential anti-slavery newspaper, The Liberator. O'Connell was at the radical end of the abolition movement, consistently arguing for immediate, not gradual, abolition, and insisting that African American people were the equals of white people. He also viewed the ending of slavery and his demand for Irish independence as part of a wider struggle for human rights, a view not shared by many abolitionists or nationalists. The following are O'Connell's words from his speeches on slavery. "I now come to America, the boasted land of freedom, and here I find slavery, which they not only tolerate but extend, justified and defended as a legacy left by us. It is but too true. But I would say to them, you threw off the allegiance you owed us because you thought we were oppressing you with the Stamp Act. You boasted of your deliverance from slavery. On what principle then? Upon American slavery do you now continue your fellow men in bondage, and render that bondage even more galling by ringing in the ears of the sufferers from your tyranny what you have done, what you have suffered for freedom. They may retaliate upon us. They They may reply by allusions to the slaveries we have established or encouraged. But what would be thought of that man who should attempt to justify the crime of sheep stealing by alleging that another stole sheep too? Would such a defence be listened to? Oh no, and I will say unto you, free men of America, and the press will convey it to you almost as swift as the wind, that God understands you, that you are hypocrites, tyrants, and unjust men, that you are degraded and dishonoured. And I say unto you, dare not to stand up boasting of your freedom or your privileges, while you continue to treat men redeemed by the same blood as the mere creatures of your will. For while you do so, there is a blot on your escutcheon, which all the waters of the Atlantic cannot wash off. Of all men living, an American citizen who is the owner of slaves is the most despicable. He is a political hypocrite of the very worst description. The friends of humanity and liberty in Europe should join in one universal cry of shame on the American slaveholders. Base wretches should be shouted in chorus. Base wretches, how dare you profane the temple of national freedom, the sacred temple of Republican rights, with the presence and the sufferings of human beings in chains and slavery. My sole objective is to rouse the attention of England and of Europe to all that is cruel, criminal, and in every sense of the word, infamous in the system of Negro slavery in North America. I have no superfluous tears to shed for Ireland, and shall show my love of my country by continuing my exertions to obtain for her justice and good government. But I feel that I have something Irish at my heart which makes me sympathize with all those who are suffering under oppression. I am the advocate of civil and religious liberty all over the globe, and wherever tyranny exists, I am the foe of the tyrant. Wherever oppression shows itself, I am the foe of the oppressor. Wherever slavery rears its head, I am the enemy of the system, or the institution, call it by what name you will. I am the friend of liberty in every clime, class, and colour. My sympathy with distress is not confined within the narrow bounds of my own green island. No, it extends itself to every corner of the earth. My heart walks abroad, and wherever the miserable is to be succoured and the slave is to be set free, there my spirit is at home, and I delight to dwell in its abode.